They stole a video game from me. No, seriously. It's not that a thief broke into my house and took the disc case. It was much more subtle and, honestly, much more insulting. A few years ago, I bought The Crew, a racing game from Ubisoft. I paid my money, played it, spent hours customizing my cars and making memories. One day I tried to play it again and was met with a message that in short said, "Thanks for your money, but we've decided this game no longer exists. Goodbye." Ubisoft, without any prior warning, simply shut down the servers, making the game I had bought completely unplayable. And I wasn't the only one. Thousands of players watched as their digital property vanished into thin air. It wasn't a technical error. It was a business decision. And that day I realized that video games, or at least what they've become, were a terrible mistake. How did we get to this point, where paying $60, $70, or now even $80 for a game doesn't guarantee you anything? To understand it, we have to rewind to a simpler time. A time when you bought a Nintendo cartridge, popped it into the console, and it just worked. Forever. The product was complete. It was yours. You could lend it, sell it, or use it as a gloriously expensive coaster. It was a simple business model, like the plot of an Adam Sandler movie. You make something, you sell it, you get money, and that's the end of the transaction. But the arrival of the internet to consoles opened a Pandora's box that not even the Greek gods could close again. Suddenly, studios realized that the sale didn't have to be the end of their relationship with the customer. It could be just the beginning. And how did such a simple idea turn into this monster? It all started pretty innocently with what was called downloadable content, or DLC. Downloadable content. At first, they were genuine expansions that added hours of gameplay. But then, in 2006, Bethesda released the infamous Horse Armor DLC for their game The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. For $2.50, you could put armor on your horse that did absolutely nothing except look nice. The gaming community laughed, turned it into a meme, and thought it was a joke, but Bethesda laughed all the way to the bank. That small, silly cosmetic addition was patient zero for aggressive monetization. It showed the entire industry that players were willing to pay extra for trivial digital content inside a game for which they had already paid full price. The original creator of that armor, years later, admitted that he regretted it. But it was already too late. The genie was out of the bottle. And this genie didn't grant 3 wishes. It asked for your credit card over and over again. The real business trick that was born from that experiment is the Games as a Service model, or GaaS. The goal is no longer to sell you a complete experience, but to trap you in an ecosystem. The base game, which you pay $80 for, is just your ticket into the amusement park. Once inside, every attraction costs extra. Want a new character? Pay. An exclusive outfit? Pay. Want to progress faster because the game is designed to be a tedious grind? Pay. It's the old bait and switch trick. But instead of a fish, it's you. And instead of a worm, it's a shiny Fortnite skin. Microtransactions became the real revenue engine, making the initial sale of the game seem almost like a tip. A report revealed that Electronic Arts, the company behind FIFA, made $5.6 billion in its last fiscal year just from these small in-game purchases. But is this business model exclusive to video games? Not at all. It's exactly the same trick used by the fast fashion industry. Companies like Shein or Temu don't make money selling you a $5 t-shirt. They make money by creating an addictive consumption cycle. They offer you products so cheap that the barrier to entry is non-existent. They bombard you with notifications about flash sales and daily new arrivals, to create a constant fear of missing out, or FOMO. Just like with a GaaS, the individual product doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you inside their ecosystem, buying constantly, generating data about your preferences, and turning you into a predictable source of income. In both cases, the customer isn't buying a durable product, but rather a cheap and fleeting dose of dopamine. Both your closet and your hard drive fill up with things that will be irrelevant in 6 months. And this mentality is leading the industry into increasingly obvious problems. The most recent scandal is the widespread increase in prices to $70. With studios like Take-Two already flirting with the idea of $80 as the new standard for base games. They justify this with the rising development costs, but conveniently leave out the fact that their profits from microtransactions have skyrocketed. Even worse, this rush to monetize has led to an epidemic of games being released broken or incomplete. Cyberpunk 2077 is the most famous example, a disaster at launch that required months of patches to become even remotely playable. Meanwhile, so far in 2024, the industry has laid off more than 10,000 developers, despite reporting record profits. The truth is that companies no longer see games as art or entertainment, but as monetization platforms. And if they can launch a half-built platform just to start selling skins sooner, they will. The impact of this goes far beyond just a buggy game. Economically, we're talking about an industry that generates over $200 billion a year. That's more than the film and music industries combined, but socially, the effect is darker. The design of these games is based on the psychology of addiction, taken directly from casinos. Loot boxes are, in essence, glorified slot machines, and their random nature has led countries like Belgium and the Netherlands to ban them for being considered a form of gambling. For players, this creates constant pressure to spend. A pay-to-win culture that ruins fair competition and turns fun into anxiety about falling behind. The average player now spends over $1,000 a year on video games, a figure that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. But when the system becomes abusive, people find ways to break it. Just like in the master plan from Money Heist, when the system oppresses you, some people decide to print their own money. In the world of video games, that's called piracy. Piracy is experiencing a renaissance, not so much because of the cost of games, but as a moral response to the predatory practices of companies. If a company can take away a game you bought legally, what incentive do you have to be an honest customer? Reddit forums, Telegram channels, and torrent sites have become digital libraries of Alexandria, preserving games that the companies themselves decide to kill off. It's a form of protest that says, if you won't let me own what I buy, then I won't pay you at all. It's not just stealing. For many, it's a form of poetic justice. And of course, the companies are furious, but there's not much they can do because they operate in a legal vacuum that they themselves helped create. There is no clear regulation regarding digital ownership. The terms of service that we accept without reading basically say that we're not buying a game, but rather a license to use it. A license that the company can revoke at any time and for any reason. Rating agencies like the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Rating Board, in the United States, are self-regulatory bodies funded by the very companies they're supposed to oversee. It's like letting the wolf design the henhouse's security system. Loot boxes are still legal in most countries because companies spend millions on lobbying to argue that they're not gambling, but rather surprise mechanics. Such a cynical phrase, that it sounds like it came straight out of a James Bond villain's handbook. This way, they sell us the magic solution, the convenience of subscriptions. The new battlefield is the subscription model, like Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. They sell it to us as the Netflix of video games. Pay a monthly fee and get access to hundreds of games. Sounds great, right? But it's the final nail in the coffin of ownership. You're renting. The moment you stop paying, your game library disappears. This gives companies total control. They can raise prices whenever they want, remove games from the catalog without warning, and most importantly, collect a terrifying amount of data about your gaming habits to design even more addictive and monetizable experiences. You're not a customer. You're a recurring monthly revenue stream. And when someone tries to challenge this control, they unleash the lawyers. Nintendo, known for its family-friendly and approachable image, is one of the most aggressive companies when it comes to protecting its intellectual property. A clear example was the case against a man named Matthew, who ran a website called ROM Universe, where people could download old Nintendo games for free. Nintendo not only sued him, but pursued him into bankruptcy, winning a lawsuit for $2.1 million. They didn't do it because the site was costing them billions. They did it to send a message. We control our legacy. We decide which games live and which die. And you, as a consumer, have no rights over them. It's a show of force to consolidate their power in a market they themselves are redefining. All of this is masked by brilliant user experience design. Companies invest millions so that spending money feels good. The sound a loot box makes when it opens, the flashy animations, the fanfares. Everything is meticulously designed to trigger the pleasure centers in your brain. Daily login reward notifications create a habit, an obligation to come back every day. The user interface subtly guides you toward the in-game store, constantly showing you what you're missing out on. It's as if Willy Wonka designed a gambling app. They lure you in with a world of visual and auditory wonders while emptying your pockets with a smile. The goal is for you to never feel like you're spending money, but rather that you're enhancing your experience. The future that awaits us is pretty clear, and it's not pretty. A high-ranking Ubisoft executive put it bluntly in a recent interview. Players need to get used to not owning their games. That's the ultimate goal. A fully digital future based on subscriptions and streaming, where we own nothing. In the end, I go back to my stolen game, The Crew. Its disappearance was neither an accident nor an isolated case. It was a warning sign. It was proof that the mistake I'm talking about isn't a bad game or a bad company. The mistake was the paradigm shift. We went from being customers who bought a product to users who rent a service. We stopped being players and became data, just a line in a recurring revenue spreadsheet. The video game industry wasn't broken. It was deliberately redesigned to work exactly this way. And we accepted it in exchange for convenience. When you buy a game nowadays, do you really feel like it's yours? Or have you already gotten used to the idea that you're only paying for temporary access? If this idea that we no longer own anything resonates with you, and you feel like your Netflix account is more and more like a bookshelf with fewer and fewer books, then you'll be very interested in the video I made about why streaming was a mistake. I'll leave it here on the screen for you.